What's up? Okay. All right, guys. We are live. Oh my God. Sorry, guys. That was funny.
What's up?
Anyway.
Okay.
All right, guys. We are live. Oh my God. I need to work on this. All right. So it's good. I think it's good now. Let me know, guys, if it's good now so that we can continue. Sound is back. Sound is back. Sound is back. Good. Sorry, I didn't see your comments. I need to move this a little bit to the side so I can see your comments. Okay, so like I was saying, guys, in 2000 and top, good. Sorry for that. Stock market map. So this is where I started from. Okay, I started with the situation of the market right now. Okay, this is where I started from. I said the stock market is going down because on Tuesday we had the Fed chairman Jerome Powell, okay, defending himself on how what they are doing, and then yesterday he came in again 2 hours after the market opened, defending himself. And according to what he has been saying, some investors are expecting us to see 50 basis points next month instead of 25 basis points, which is of course one of the reasons why I think the stock market is going lower today. Okay, S&P 500 is down, about almost 2%, I believe. And then, we have the NASDAQ almost down about 2% as well. Then if you come to the diagnostics and research sector, you can see Bionano Genomics is set to report their earnings today. And they are presently down about minus 3.82%. Okay. And the thing is, in 2020 December, when I discovered Bionano Genomics, okay, this company was super pumped, super hyped. Everybody was super happy with what was going on. Okay, before we started to see that inflation getting out of hand, and then Fed coming in and hiking the interest rates. So I made this Bionano Genomics Bible back then. It's about 79 pages, guys, and it was free. Of course, you guys can always have access to it. But the thing is, back then we still have the likes of Jason Pryor, the chief commercial officer of Bionano Genomics, that joined the company in 2021. And then we have, Mr. Rishipi. Okay, he was the chief business officer of Bionano Genomics, the one and only guy that always connect with we retail investors on Twitter, letting us to know what is, we kind of have some kind of connection with the company for the first time. But right now, unfortunately, the guy has resigned. He's no more with Bionano Genomics, and it's super hard to have contact with anybody at Bngo except for some selected few people. Okay, I know their names, but I don't want to mention them. They somehow have connection with maybe the CEO or somebody at Bngo. So now we have Dr. Shams also. He retired, and then he used to be the chief informatics officer of Bngo. He also somehow retired last year, and then since then the company has literally been going down. Okay, so and then if you guys take a look at what has been going on with Bionano Genomics since they retired, you guys can see I think Mr. Rishipi retired sometime in November. And the share price of Bngo since the retirement announcement, has been literally going down. That is one thing. So Bngo is set to report their earnings in the next I believe 10 15 20 minutes. But if you take a look at this, apart from the third quarter of 2022, Bngo has literally been missing their estimate, okay, according to analysts, the consensus earnings per share. And before that third quarter, they were missing it for like I think 4 consecutive quarters until third quarter of last year. So if they meet the estimate in the fourth quarter of 2022, or if they beat it, that will be a good news, because right now we literally have only apart from the fundamental part of the business, that the business is growing, they are installing more Sapphire devices, they are gaining more customers. They finished a study most recently, and these 2 publications, for example, Bionano Genomics announces 2 publications from its clinical study designed to support optical genome mapping as part of standard of care. And then we have all experts coming out talking about how amazing the company is, the technology, and how they hope that it is going to replace standard of care. Apart from that, if you go to the financial part of the company, the news is not completely good news. Okay, so if you take a look at this, you can see that expenses has been increasing. Okay, this is more or less like a inverse parabolic rally. Okay, and then of course revenue has been increasing, but expenses has been getting out of hand. 2021 they spent about 72 million US dollars. So we don't know how much they spent in 2022. We just have to wait and see in the next couple of minutes. And so if they manage to reach a point whereby they stop spending more money, if they start to reduce their expenses somehow, maybe they are going to reduce their head count, because they have literally been employing any talent they can find out there. Okay, even though Jerome Powell, the Fed chairman, is saying companies should start to lay off some workers, okay, should start to shrink a little bit. You guys can see what is going on with the likes of General Motors, Ford, and so on and so forth. Bionano Genomics is still employing. So now we will see what they will report today. And then what I can talk about here again is that the volume. Okay, I already shared with you guys that the volume has been decreasing. Okay, the average volume used to be 8 million and above, but since then it has been, since last year November or so, it has been decreasing. Right now it is approaching 6.5 million shares exchanging out, which of course means investors are losing their they are losing their, how should I say it, they like, they don't want to, they are not hyped, they are not pumped about BNGO. Now before we continue, okay, to the next part, okay, because we still have a breaking news that I want to discuss. We saw a filing from Bionano Genomics that I want to share my own opinion with you guys, what I expect to happen to the stock price. Like I already shared with my most recent video, from the technical aspect, I said these zones right here are buy zones. But today we saw a breaking news that Bionano Genomics made a filing, a SEC filing, announcing some kind of at the market. I don't want to jump into it. I will take you guys there later. So this news has literally changed everything. That is of course why I always urge you guys to at least become a patron of the channel, which of course cost just about $5 right now. It used to be $3, but it's sold out. Now it has increased to $5, and I have about 7 slots left. If I get 7 new members to join for $5, I'm going to increase the money once again to $7 from $5. So now you guys can see that today we saw a breaking news, and this is where we are. If Bionano Genomics report and investors don't really if they don't like what they hear from BNGO, you guys should expect the price to break this support for the first time. Okay, back in May 2022 we got to this $1.16, and then we bounced all the way to this almost 5 years of $4.32, and since then the share price of BNGO has been going now. Of course, Bionano Genomics took advantage of this rally last year. They raised some money. I don't know if BNGO have been doing there is a possibility that they have been doing the same in the fourth quarter of last year. I hope they already do, if they have raised some money last quarter. If not, then it is not good news. If they haven't raised any money during all this sell-off that we have been saying, I suspect that this sell-off was due to Bionano Genomics raising some kind of money. If not, it's not a good news for the company. Now Bionano Genomics, they have updated their website. We had symposium in January, which was wonderful. Okay, I mean, a lot of experts came out and they spoke about how amazing such a year you keep increasing the price of your payroll. It used to be $1, it was $3, but I always tell you guys, if you want to join, please join. But I mean, I don't want everybody to have access to what I am sharing. That is just the sad truth. Okay, I mean, it's not free. I've been doing this for years and it takes blood and sweat, believe me. So anyway, now Bionano Genomics came out with the SEC filings today. Okay, we saw this POSAS or how do you want to call it. We saw this filing today, and then it's about 67 pages, I believe. Yeah, 67 pages. I went through everything, and trust me, it wasn't fun. It's not fun to read, but I went through everything and I shared everything with my Patreon. But first of all, before we dive into that, there is also another filing on the 6th of this month, about 3 days ago. And this one is about initial filing by director, officer, or owner of more than 10%. Okay, somebody, the name of this director is Dixon Jonathan 5. I don't know who that person is. This is, a general counsel, and somehow he filed, ownership form D, okay, common stock. And then, you guys can see right here, amount or number of shares, 350,000, and then 117,000. I mean, I don't really understand why this comes in as this kind of filing. Okay, this form 3 filing. I don't want to go into that because that's not really important right now, in my opinion. You guys can also, you can go to the website and check out the filing if you want to dive deeper. But I spent my time today looking at these 67 pages about the form S3 that Bionano Genomics filed today. So let's talk about this form right here, guys. Okay, just a second. I'm gonna reduce this a little bit. Okay, all right, guys. So guys, don't forget to smash the like button. Please remember to smash the like button. So now this form S3 came in today, and Bionano Genomics, this more or less like an adjustment, okay, to the previous form S3 that's they already filed. And if you go down, okay, you can see, let me just go through this form as fast as possible. Okay, the first thing you see is that Bionano Genomics was talking about, in this form they spoke about 400 million US dollars, okay, raising 400 million US dollars. Okay, and then if you come down, you can see a sales agreement prospectus supplement that covers the offering, issuance, and sale by the registrants of up to 200 million US dollars. Okay, now Bionano Genomics is working with Cohen and Company LLC, and if you guys remember correctly, on Monday, the chief executive officer of Bionano Genomics, Dr. Eric Homlin, he went to Cohen and Company, where he spoke about Bionano Genomics, the company, and the future of the company. My most recent video was about that conference, and that is where he went to. He went to Cohen, and Bionano Genomics, this is not the first time they are working with Cohen, although we don't have any analyst from Cohen rating the share price of the company yet. I don't know why. Cohen is making money from Bionano Genomics. I would expect an analyst from Cohen to initiate a rating of Bionano Genomics, buy rating, obviously, because they are making money from the company, but nothing like that yet. Anyway, in a nutshell, if you go down, okay, you need to go down if you want to find more information about this. You need to go to like page 30 something, I believe. So I don't want to waste the time because very soon the market is going to close, and then we are going to hear from. So right here you can find more information on page 37. You guys can see right here, common stock offered by us, shares of our common stock having an aggregate offering price of up to 200 million US dollars. So Bngo is going to be starting at the market offering. I don't know if they started already. Maybe this filing came in late because Bngo is a small company. Somehow they are allowed to cheat. Okay, I wouldn't call it cheating. That is more or less like the rule. If you're a small company, you are allowed sometimes to file late. Okay, so there is a possibility they have already started to offer some at the market offering, selling some shares, diluting the shares. Okay, maybe that is why the share price of Bngo has been going down since last quarter. So this is the daily 2000 from November. You guys can see from November we used to be around $3, then we sold off all the way to where we are today. So somehow Bngo sometimes is allowed to do that. So you guys can see common stock to be outstanding immediately following this offering from 449 shares, assuming sales of 152 million shares in this offering at an assumed offering price of 1.31 US dollars per share. And on March 8th, yada yada. If you go further down, let me see if I can find more interesting. If I shared a lot of information with my Patreon already, so you guys can see right here some number of shares of our common stock to be outstanding immediately after this offering. This is what they are going to have left. 297.1 million shares was the outstanding as at 31st of December, and it excludes all this right here. Okay, it's a lot of story, you don't need that. Now if you go down, okay, let me find you the most simplest information about this, okay, so that we can at least move on. The market as closed, and any moment from now BNG is going to be reporting. So use of proceeds, you guys can see what they plan to use with, what they plan to, once they raise this money, what they plan to do with it. Of course, to run the business. Okay, obviously we may issue and sell shares of our common stock having aggregate sales proceeds of up to 200 million US dollars from time to time after the date of this prospectus supplement. Because there is no minimum offering amount required as a condition to close this offering, the actual total public offering amounts, commissions, and proceeds to us, if any, are not determinable at this point. So in a nutshell, BNG is going to be diluting shares, guys. They are going to be selling, or they already sold. We will find out very soon. But before we continue with that, let me quickly take a look if we have a new filing, because Bionano Genomics is going to be dropping their earnings any moment from now. So nothing yet. If you guys have anything, please let me know in the comment section. If you spot BNGO announcing their earnings, let me know in the comment section. Okay, so let me first of all go back, and we can see the after hour the market has closed. So BNG is up about 1.6% right now. So we don't have anything yet. Nothing. I just have to keep refreshing this this SEC filing page so that we can see once they file, the earnings results. So we will see it here. And then just a second. Bionano. My nose is killing me, guys. Just a second, guys. I want to bring out the page where we're going to be listening to the earnings call. Okay. So all right, so this is the page. Nothing yet. Nothing so far. All right, guys. So so let's continue. Let's continue. All right, guys. So SEC filing, once again, I'm going to be refreshing. So nothing yet. Now, Bionano Genomics, like I was saying, we currently intend to use the net proceeds from the sale of the common stock offered by us here under to support our growth strategy. Growth strategy and for working capital and general corporate purposes. Now, if you go further down, you can see the dilution right here. Assumed public offering price per share 1.31 US dollars. Net tangible book value per share as of December 31st, 2022, 44 cents. Increase in the net tangible book value per share attributed to this offering, 30 cents. Look at that, guys. Dilution per share to investors in this offering, 57 cents. I mean, guys, this is crazy, guys. The table above is based on 297 million shares of our common stock outstanding as of December 31st, 2022, and it excludes all this right here. So once again, I'm going to be refreshing. Nothing yet. We don't have anything yet. Okay, we don't have anything yet. Nothing so far. Nothing so far. In a nutshell, Bionano Genomics is set to raise, according to this filing, 200 million US dollars. I mean, if they manage to do this without, driving the share price of this company crazy, lower than where it is right now, then it is good news for the company. If that is good news for investors, it's not really clear to me right now, because right now, we have high inflation, we have quantitative tightening, and everything right now is literally pointing to bearish. Okay, the stock market has been going down, and I don't know how that is going to favor we retail investors. Okay, and Bionano Genomics still has no date of when they are going to be profitable yet, unlike PacBio that has already said they plan to be, to break even in 2026. We don't have any information from Bionano Genomics yet. Okay, so I'm trying to see if they make a new filing, but nothing yet. I can't see anything. I can't see anything yet. If you have anything, guys, please let me know in the comment section. Okay, if you have any results, let me know in the comment section. Nothing yet. Maybe we just have to wait 10 more minutes, but I'm trying to check all my sources to see if there is something. So nothing so far. We're still waiting. We are still waiting. Like I was saying, so if BNGO, according to my own calculation before we saw this filing coming in, according to my Bionano Genomics 9-year projection, BNGO cash, where is their cash? Where is the table for cash? Okay, so as at third quarter of 2022, the cash available was 180 million US dollars. Okay, 180 million US dollars in cash. And then we acquired another company, and we spent about 63. According to the management, they are expected to spend about 63 million US dollars for that acquisition. And then every quarter we are spending about 30 million US dollars per quarter. As you guys can see, Q1 we spent 30 million, Q2 we spent 33 million, Q3 we spent 34 million. So if you deduct 63 million and 30 million for fourth quarter, you guys can already tell we were supposed to be below 100 million US dollars in cash. So if they manage to raise this 200, let me just close this file right here. If they manage to raise 200 million US dollars, if they have raised it already, then it is good. Okay, but if not, if they plan to raise it by diluting shares, by selling at the market, I don't think that is going to be something that we retail investors are going to like. Okay, and after hour the share price is up about, it is out. All right, guys, so somebody told me it is out. Let me refresh this page once again. I can't find anything on this page, guys. This is where they're supposed to put the SEC filing. So let me just go to news and events. I think, okay, all right, guys, so we have it. Bionano Genomics report fourth quarter and full year 2022 result and provides revenue outlook for 2023. Okay, and total revenue was 8.2 million US dollars. Okay, that is of course what they expected. We saw the preliminary result already, so nothing on shocking here, which represents a 30% increase over Q4 2021. 2022 revenue was 27.8 million US dollars. Okay, so okay, which represents a 55%. This is very good. Okay, revenue is increasing. What we are interested mostly in is the expenses. Reached install base of 240 Sapphire system as of year end 2022. We already know about this according to the preliminary result. Okay, now which represents 46%, yada yada. Now conference call is going to be in the next 21 minutes or so. In the next 21 minutes, so this is good. We have enough time to talk about this. Now, according to the CEO of Bionano Genomics, we started the year against a challenging external backdrop, and over the course of the year achieved or exceeded all of the stated 2022 elevate milestones we outlined at the beginning of 2022. And then they continue. Bionano issued revenue guidance for the first time in 2022, and we exceeded our total 2022 guidance range. We were also pleased to see an uptick in overall awareness and adoption of optical genome mapping across the globe. Okay, now recent highlights, published peer review. I don't want to go into this for now. Let me just go into the numbers. Okay, that is what I am mostly interested in. Then we can come back to that, all those numbers, all those peer review and stuff later. Now, Q4 2022 and full year 2022 financial highlights. Total revenue for the fourth quarter 8.2 million, an increase of yada yada. And then full year 2022 revenue was 27.8 million. We already saw that. Gross margin for the fourth quarter of 2022 was 22% compared to 4% from the fourth quarter of 2021. Okay, gross margin is good. The increase was primarily due to major improvements in chip yield year over year. Full year 2022 total gross margin was 21%, slightly down from 22% 2021. Okay, so margin is down, gross margin is down 1%. Okay, from 2021. Now, fourth quarter 2022 GAAP operating expense was 39.3. You see, I told you guys, 39.3 million US dollars total revenue. Okay, Q4 revenue. I have to start, plot my graph. You guys can see Q4 2020 revenue. This is the total revenue. Q3 7 million. Q4. What is this? Not revenue, expense. What am I doing? Total expenses. I need to highlight it. Operating expenses 2000 and Q4. I need to highlight it, and so expenses gap, operating expenses. Look at that. It used to be 34 in Q3. Now we are at look at that. We are now at 39. So you guys can see what I'm talking about. From 34, you can see it keep increasing. We don't know when they're going to stop spending that much money. So now compared to 29 million in the prior year, fourth quarter 2022 non-GAAP operating expenses was 30.6 million US dollars non-GAAP. This is my non-GAAP right here. You guys can see it used to be non-GAAP from Q3 was 26, so Q4 30 million non-GAAP. Now if you continue compared to 21.8 million in the fourth quarter of 2021, fourth quarter of 2022 non-GAAP operating expenses excluded 5.5 million in stock-based compensation. Look at that, 5.5 million just for stock-based compensation, and you already know the meaning of that, guys. I didn't to say everything. Now 1.5 million in amortization of intangibles and 1.7 million in acquisition related expenses. The year-over-year increase was primarily due to increased headcount related spending. You guys can see the year over year. Look at that. Like I said, you would expect Bngo to slow down the headcount a little bit, but no, the year over year increase was primarily due to increased headcount related spending, increased research and development expenses. This is still normal, okay, but and expenses associated with our acquisition of Purigen Biosystems. Full year 2022 GAAP operating expenses was 137.6 million US dollars. Okay, full year. And non-GAAP operating expense. Now I need to put this again in my graph so that you guys can see the plot how it is increasing. So operating expenses, where do I have it? Yeah, flow cell, full year operating expenses. I don't have the I'm supposed to have the yearly total revenue. I have only service, and so I don't have it. I have only total revenue. Let's continue. So cash equivalents and available for sale security were 113.2 million. Oh my god, 113.2 million US dollars. So Bionano Genomics raised some money in the fourth quarter, but it's not as big as so you guys should expect Bngo to start to offer some shares at the market. Okay, that is just what I just see, like I was already sharing with you guys. Okay, look at that. We used to have 180 million US dollars in cash in Q3. Like I said, we acquired a new company, and then we spent almost 40 million US dollars, and now we are left with 113.2 million US dollars as at Q4. Okay, as at December 31st 2022, we have 130 million US dollars left. Now if we spent 40 million US dollars in Q4 alone, this is literally like 2.5 quarters left of cash. Now they are going to be raising some money as we continue. Okay, They now okay, shares outstanding, so we have cash left for like 2.5 quarter. You guys should expect some kind of dilution going forward, okay? And hopefully some kind of miracle is gonna happen. This share price is going to increase. If we don't see that, so let's continue, guys. Now, 2023 financial guidance. Bionano expects full year 2020 revenue to be in the range of 35 to 38 million. This is not good, guys. This is not good. Because according to the article that I just shared with you guys, okay, if you take a look at this article right here, analysts have been trimming their sales forecast. Now, if you go down, you can see they have reduced. The consensus had been expecting revenues of 45 million and 42 cents per share in losses, but they reduced it to 40 million. Look at it right here. Following the downgrade, the current consensus from Bionano Genomics 5 analysts is for revenues of 40 million US dollars in 2023. So if analysts are expecting 40 million US dollars in 2023 and Bionano Genomics is guiding us from 35 to 38 million, it's not even up to 40 million. We're gonna need some kind of miracle in this year, which would represent a range of 26% to 37% growth over full year 2022 revenue. So this is what they are targeting. Of course, I mean, the sentiment of the market right now is crap. Inflation is very high. Interest rate is out of hand, and you guys saw what is going on with all those 10-year, 2-year, all those bonds, how they are hitting all-time high, day after day. So maybe that is why Bngo is kind of not trying to go crazy. But this right here, according to my own projection, 38 million is even very little from what from the beginning when I started to project what I expect Bngo, this my parabolic rally. My target was even 57 million total revenue in 2023. 57. Now analysts came out and say, okay, it's going to be 40 million from 45, and then Bionano Genomics is coming out and saying it's going to be 38. Now let me put 38 right here so that you guys can I'm going to put 38. Let's say 38 million. You will see how it's gonna change in my graph. Okay, so 2000, look at that, 2023 38. You guys can see that this is what is going on right now. Just a second. All right, guys. So there we still have to wait a little bit. They haven't started the earnings call yet. So you guys can see that this is 38. You can see that the parabolic rally that I was expecting when I started to make my own projection, okay, is kind of becoming very slow, okay, which means this in 2024, according to my estimate, it was something above 150 million US dollars. But right now I think Bngo, if they come out with 38 for 2023, let's hope inflation is going to come down, the Fed is going to stop tightening, and then they can start quantitative easing again, start printing money like crazy, like they did during the lockdown in 2020. Let's hope that is going to be the case, so that all those research laboratories out there, clinics out there can start to adopt the Sapphire device massively in numbers. Okay, maybe per quarter we are going to be seeing maybe 30 Sapphire device, above 30 Sapphire devices, okay, being adopted. Then at least we can approach maybe 120 20-30 million. But I think this is not going to be realistic anymore. This projection, this parabolic rally, according to my estimation, that in 2026 Bionano Genomics is going to at least break even, be profitable. But I don't think that's going to be the case right now. You guys can see what is going on. 2021, $18 million in total revenue. 2022, $13 million in total revenue, literally like 10 million more. 2023, 38, which means from 29 to 38, which means like Bngo is adding 10 million per year. So 2024, if this is 38 million dollars, I mean, except if we also get FDA approval. Okay, if we get FDA approval and then Bionano Genomics start to sell more Sapphire devices, that is when I think we are going to see some kind of miracle. If not, so you guys should be watching out for that news about FDA approval, Bionano Genomics being adopted, in replacing standard of care method of analyzing genomes, and then selling massive number of Sapphire devices. Right now we have 240 devices installed as at last year. Okay, and so if we can at least add 100 Sapphire devices after some kind of breaking news, that is the kind of thing we should be praying for right now. I mean, if not, so look at that, we have 240 Sapphire devices installed, but we only brought in 39 point 2010, so 39.3 million US dollars in total expenses. 28. Where is it even? What am I doing? 38 million US dollars in total revenue 2023, expect 29 million US dollars in total revenue in 2022, 240 Sapphire devices installed. Then 2023 they expect 38 million US dollars. Probably I still have to see what their projection is for number of Sapphires that they plan to install. Nothing. There is nothing. 320. Okay, that is it. They are targeting 320 Sapphire devices for 2023. We anticipate the installed base of OGM systems will total 325 by end of 2023. So from 240 to 300, not even up to 100 Sapphire devices in 2023. So I suspect Bngo is going to be adding maximum, okay, 10 million US dollars like they projected. Okay, maybe they can pull off 15 million US dollars. Okay, then we can have more than 38 million US dollars in total revenue for 2023, maybe 43 million. Then they can meet up the estimates from analysts of 40 million US dollars in 2023. Maybe that is going to be the case. We just have to wait and see. So I mean, I'm just sharing my opinion with you guys. Okay, so we have about I think 7 minutes left before the earnings call starts, and finally I can blow my nose. We just have to wait and see. Now I think that is literally that about that. We have reached the bottom. Now, according to the chief financial officer Christopher Stewart, he said, I quote, Christopher Stewart said, Q4 2022 was an outstanding quarter, capping off a tremendous year where we achieved impressive year-over-year revenue growth of 30%. We leveraged our strong balance sheet to acquire Purigen Biosystems and their industry-leading isotachophoresis ITP solution for DNA isolation and analysis on the ionic purification system in Q4 2022. We begin 2023 well positioned and look forward to executing on our goal to drive value for our stakeholders. Guys, this is why you always have to do your own due diligence, guys. I mean, if you don't do your due diligence, if you read this, you would say, amazing. You're going to say, wow, this is awesome. But I just shared everything with you guys. We just went through all the numbers. So this is why you always have to do your own due diligence. You don't even take my own word. you can also still go on the website, check everything out for yourself. Maybe I made some mistake, somewhere, and you guys can spot it out. Always do your own due diligence and know where you're putting your money. Okay. And now let's talk about, because we still have like 6 minutes left. After this video, I'm going to talk about some other stocks that I want to share with you guys. Okay, like I have been sharing on Twitter some stocks that broke out, yesterday, making 20% or making 50%. We will talk about it, about those stocks at the end of the earnings call. Okay, before I end this live stream. Now, before we continue, we have about 5 minutes left. So key publications validated OGM's utility for research applications, including cancer and genetic disease. Now, researchers from the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center published the first study to evaluate the utility of OGM for myelodysplastic syndrome (MDS) prognostication. The publication reported that when OGM was used instead of karyotyping, 17 to 21% of study subjects had different prognostic risk scores depending on the scoring system used, and in 13% of study subjects, additional pathogenic variants were revealed. So these are all other studies, like Bionano Genomics. I have read tons of all these studies, guys. Now, the good thing about my channel is I go through the fundamental analysis. I also go through the technical analysis, and then I focus on profit. When the share price is likely to rally. That has been my focus, and that was supposed to be my focus from the beginning, but somehow I got super hyped about this technology and then I lost my focus. But right now I'm back, baby. So I'm going to go through some of the comments. We have about 4 minutes left, and then we can if you guys have any comment, any question, please let me know. What do you expect tomorrow? 30% down. You guys can see that after hour, somehow Bionano Genomics, is still performing well. How many percent right now? Okay, we are down minus 1.6%. Like any other stocks, anytime they report earnings, you have to wait for the earnings call to hear from the CEO. You have to wait for analysts to ask the management, okay, some questions, and however they answer the question is going to determine what is going to happen with the share price after hours or pre-market tomorrow. So we just have to wait and listen to the earnings call and hear what they have to say about what is going on with the company before we can decide if tomorrow is going to be a bloodbath or not. And remember, I shared something with my patrons. Tomorrow there's still one other data coming in, macroeconomic data coming in. If it comes in hotter than expected and Bionano Genomics management don't perform very well during this earnings call, it's gonna be a bloodbath tomorrow, guys. Some people are still waiting for this stock to drop below a certain area. I already shared it with my patrons, and if it gets to that area, we're gonna buy the dip. We are going to be buying. We are going to load the ship. But if not, let's just hope. I don't want this to go down because we have a lot of position. Some of us even have positions at $6, guys. Let me take a look at 1 year, 5, maybe 5 years. Look at that. Some of us have position even at 11, 9, 10. I don't want it to go further down. Okay, the earlier we break even or make profit, the better, because we have literally been holding on for years. Okay, since 2021, the only thing we have been seeing from investing in this company is literally draw down. Okay, and some people are already taking some losses, and it's not good. It's not good, guys. Anyway, it's just the price. That product is still good. Keep mumbling about the fundamental. It's just the price. We are all here for the price. We are here to earn money, period. Stop. I don't think all of these hospitals acquires the systems, spend money on it if it's not working and not worth it. It's not that easy, guys. It's not that easy. That's why I'm always careful with my So we have 1 minute left before Bionano Genomics is going to be on the call. We have 1 minute left, guys. Less than a minute. If you guys have any question, let me know. Oh, Peace is asking me how many shares of Bngo I own, guys. I have almost 50,000 euro invested in this company. 50,000. So you can already imagine. Shares outstanding. I think I already shared the shares outstanding with you guys. Outstanding. I don't know if they have it here. Outstanding, nothing like that here. I already shared it with you guys from the filing. Outstanding, nothing like that here. I already shared it with you guys from the filing.
You will need to press *11 on your telephone. You will then hear an automated message advising you that your hand is in a listen only mode.
Nothing like that here. I already shared it with you guys from the filing.
Please be advised *11 on your telephone. At this time, I would like to turn the conference over to Amy Conrad.
Nothing like that here. I already shared it with you guys from the filing.
Please be advised *11 on your telephone.
Welcome to the Bionano Genomics fourth quarter and full year 2022 financial results conference call. Leading the call today is Dr. Eric Holmlin, CEO of Bionano. He is joined by Chris Stewart, CFO of Bionano. After market close today, Bionano issued a press release announcing its financial results for the fourth quarter and full year 2022. A copy of the release can be found on the investor relations page of the company's website. I would like to remind everyone that certain statements made during this conference call are forward-looking, including statements about Bionano's strategic and commercialization plans, sales pipeline, future fundraising activities and prospects, anticipated benefits or improvements to the Saphyr system and ionic purification system, goals and anticipated milestones for 2023, and achievement of our Elevate growth strategy, our anticipated compound annual growth rate, the size and our ability to access our estimated target markets, the advantage of the Saphyr system and ionic purification system over current technologies, the anticipated benefits of recent acquisitions, expectations regarding timing and content of study results, and anticipated benefits of these studies in driving adoption of the Saphyr system and ionic purification system. Such forward-looking statements are based upon current expectations, and there can be no assurances that the results contemplated in these statements will be realized. Actual results may differ materially from such statements due to a number of factors and risks, some of which are identified in Bionano's press release and Bionano's reports filed with the SEC. These forward-looking statements are based on information available to Bionano today, and the company assumes no obligation to update statements as circumstances change. In addition, to supplement Bionano's financial results reported in accordance with U.S. Generally Accepted Accounting Principles, or GAAP, the company is reporting non-GAAP operating expense. This non-GAAP financial measure is not meant to be considered in isolation or as a substitute for comparable GAAP measures. Should be read in conjunction with the company's consolidated financial statements prepared in accordance with GAAP, has no standardized meaning prescribed by GAAP, and is not prepared under any comprehensive set of accounting rules or principles. A description of non-GAAP operating expense and reconciliation of non-GAAP operating expense to GAAP operating expense are included at the end of the company's earnings release issued earlier today, which has been posted on the investor relations page of the company's website. An audio recording and webcast replay for today's conference call will also be available online in the investor section of the company's website. With that, I will now turn the call over to Eric.
Thank you, Amy, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I want to start off by saying that 2022 was simply a spectacular year for Bionano. We really couldn't be happier with the results, and in fact, we're just blown away with what we see as progress around the world in adopting optical genome mapping. We started 2022 in a pretty difficult macro environment. There was continued uncertainty around COVID, which was limiting our access to laboratories and impacting our ability to install the Saphyr system. We faced challenges with chip suppliers, and production yields were lower than anticipated. And I'm happy to report that over the course of the year, we were able to get production yields back up and restore them to levels that they were previously, and that we hit our installed base milestone for Saphyr systems for the year. And never once did we face any backlog or any inability to ship product to customers based on supply chain issues. And that's a credit to so many incredible employees across our company who battled through difficult conditions to produce a great result, and I'm thankful to them. We kicked off our strategy for growth, which we named Elevate, at the start of 2022, and we delivered against all of our Elevate milestones for the year. We met or exceeded our guidance for revenues on both a full year basis and in each quarter over the course of the year. I'd like to take a little bit of time to share with you some highlights from our 2022 achievements, including those in the fourth quarter. To begin, we grew the install base of Sapphire systems in the world to 240, which represents a 46% increase over the 164 systems that were installed at the end of 2021. In the fourth quarter of 2022, we sold 4,781 flow cells, which represents 49% growth over the same period in 2021, and brought the total for 2022 to 15,375 flow cells sold. That represents a 23% growth over the 12,518 flow cells sold in 2021. And that's just tremendous progress. You have to remember that the flow cell is the unit consumable that really connects most closely to the number of human genomes that are being analyzed by optical genome mapping. And so this growth is truly impressive. We continue to process a substantial number of samples for optical genome mapping through Bionano laboratories, and this is a vehicle that we leverage to introduce people who are interested in OGM to how powerful that data is on their samples. Revenues for the fourth quarter of 2022 were $8.2 million, which is up 30% versus the fourth quarter of 2021. Revenue for the full year 2022 was $27.8 million, which represents year-over-year revenue growth of 55%. And we're incredibly impressed by the performance on the top line in the fourth quarter, and we believe it really shows what we're capable of doing in this business, both from an absolute standpoint, but on an ongoing growth basis. And so it's an outstanding outcome for our team selling optical genome mapping and our other products, clinical services, and software. In fact, we exceeded the goals and expectations for all of our planned milestones over the course of the year and advanced the company strategy as well as our products. I'd like to share some of those key highlights from the full year. We made significant progress towards streamlining the optical genome mapping workflow with our acquisition of Purigen Biosystems, which closed in November of 2022. That acquisition brings their ionic system, which uses isotachophoresis technology, into our optical genome mapping workflow, and we believe that it really completes the assembly of the extremely streamlined end-to-end workflow for optical genome mapping once we launch the ionic system and its consumables for OGM. We developed and released enhanced kits for DNA isolation and labeling in our OGM workflow, the SPG2 labeling kit and the Bionano Prep Direct Label and Stain G2 DNA isolation and labeling kits. These enable sample to results in as little as 3 days for cancer samples, and they are proving to dramatically increase the reliability of the workflow in customers' hands. And it's always been a key pillar of our strategy to delight customers with robust products, and these new kits do exactly that. We also released an automated version of our DNA isolation chemistry, which has been done in partnership with Hamilton and is linked to their long-string Vantage DNA isolation robot. We launched a number of optical genome mapping laboratory-developed tests, or LDTs, through Bionano Laboratories. One is for hematologic malignancies, and another is for the genetic disorder FSHD1. We believe these allow healthcare providers to explore the clinical utility of optical genome mapping-based assays through these LDTs, and we believe that this utilization will support efforts to gain coding and coverage for reimbursement by third-party payers. We also met all of our milestones in our clinical studies for prenatal and postnatal and hematologic trials, including study enrollment targets, completion of our postnatal study, which has now been published as a preprint, as well as the interim publication of the prenatal study, which was published in December of 2022. We also initiated our solid tumor trial. These trials are critical to providing the critical mass of data that will be used to drive medical societies to support the inclusion of optical genome mapping in their recommended first-line tests. Several sites across the United States and Europe validated laboratory-developed tests, and in the United States, they submitted applications for reimbursement codes, including Z codes and proprietary laboratory analysis, or PLA codes, which enable them to get paid for optical genome mapping tests. And they have been very pleased with the level of reimbursement that's been assigned to these codes, ranging in the area of about $1,300 for constitutional genetic disorder testing, which is comparable to reimbursement rates available in the market today. NX Clinical Software version 7.0, which is the version of that software enabled for OGM data analysis, is being used in the field, and we are planning a full commercial release for applications in hematologic malignancies in the first half of 2023. A pre-commercial version of our next generation high-throughput Sapphire system has been running in the field with excellent results, and we plan to launch that new instrument into the field this year. Initial launch will be in the first half of 2023, and we'll see adoption and installation towards the second half of the year. We expect this instrument to enable optical genome mapping analysis at substantially higher throughputs compared to the Sapphire system, and that it will support labs that are running much higher volumes. Finally, there were a number of amazing publications that were published in 2022, and we believe they tell the story of optical genome mapping and how the future of the company will unfold. 5 groundbreaking publications that I want to outline for you today are as follows. You may remember that we talked about an incredibly powerful publication from a number of scientists at the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center, where they described the use of optical genome mapping and evaluation of myelodysplastic syndrome, or MDS, prognostication. And what was incredible about this paper is it showed that up to 21% of study subjects had a different prognostic risk score when optical genome mapping was used to evaluate them compared to the standard of care. That's 1 in 5 people. So the impact of OGM cannot be denied. This publication really underscores it. Researchers from Necker Hospital in France found that optical genome mapping detected more clinically relevant variants in 33% of MDS patients and 54% of acute myeloid leukemia samples which is a critical demonstration of the utility of optical genome mapping to go above and beyond the standard of care. Researchers from 8 different institutes analyzed OGM's utility for cytogenetic abnormalities in, again, AML samples, and here they found that 12% of the cases had different risk levels and were eligible for clinical trials as a result of these new findings. This inclusion in clinical trials is incredibly meaningful because it connects these patients to potentially life-saving therapeutics that they otherwise would not have had access to without the findings of OGM. So you can imagine the impact of these findings. Researchers from Augusta University published the first validation study to evaluate the performance of optical genome mapping versus traditional methods for hematologic neoplasms, which showed an incredibly high technical performance and concordance rate with, importantly, 100% first pass rate, meaning that the reliability of optical genome mapping in these workflows is highly reliable and does not require repetition of the test, which drives up costs for payers and delays results to patients. Finally, researchers from a foundation at Kyoto University demonstrated the utility of optical genome mapping as part of a workflow to evaluate hypoimmunogenic induced pluripotent stem cells, iPSCs, and that this workflow could be used in regenerative medicine, showing OGM's ability to detect off-target effects or areas where genome modification has gone awry and reveals that these modified stem cells may or may not be useful in a particular patient setting. And this is an area of significant interest in the adoption of optical genome mapping for various applications in cell therapy. At the close of this call, I want to go through our milestones planned as part of Elevate for 2023. But before doing that, I want to turn the call over to Chris Stewart, our CFO, who will review the financials for the year. Chris?
Thanks, Eric. The fourth quarter of 2022 was another outstanding quarter, which capped off a great year where we achieved impressive year-over-year revenue growth and diversified our revenue across product lines and geography. With the acquisition of Purigen, we now control the end-to-end OGM workflow and expect to expand our target markets. Now to get to the numbers. Revenue in the fourth quarter of 2022 was approximately $8.2 million, a 30% increase over the fourth quarter of 2021, and within the preliminary range of $8.1 to $8.4 million that we provided on January 5th of this year. Revenue for the full year was $27.8 million, representing a 55% increase over the full year 2021. This year-over-year increase was driven by strong performance in all 3 of our core businesses, OGM, Bionano Labs, and software, and across all 3 major geographies. Gross margin for the fourth quarter of 2022 was 22% compared to 4% in the fourth quarter of 2021. For the full year, gross margin was 21% compared to 22% in 2021. The slight decrease from 2021 was mainly due to the yield challenges that we experienced beginning in late 2021. As Eric mentioned, yields on product being produced today is now back to the levels we saw pre-COVID, so we expect that issue is now behind us. Regarding operating expense, we report both GAAP and non-GAAP numbers. We believe that providing our operating expense, excluding certain ongoing non-cash expenses and other one-time expenses, provides a more useful measure of our performance. Fourth quarter 2022 GAAP operating expense was $39.3 million compared to $29 million the prior year. Full year 2022 GAAP operating expense was $137.6 million compared to $81 million in 2021. The increase for the quarter and the year was primarily due to increased headcount and headcount-related expenses and an increase in marketing and R&D expense. Full year 2022 non-GAAP operating expense was $107.7 million and excludes $22.4 million in stock-based compensation, $5.8 million in amortization of intangibles, and $1.8 million in acquisition-related transaction costs. Fourth quarter non-GAAP operating expense was $30.6 million compared to $21.8 million in the fourth quarter of 2021. Fourth quarter non-GAAP operating expense excludes $5.5 million in stock-based comp, $1.5 million in amortization of intangibles, and $1.7 million in expenses related to our acquisition of Purigen. We ended the fourth quarter with $113.2 million in cash equivalents, and available for sale securities, compared to $180 million at the end of Q3. During the quarter, we incurred costs of approximately $34 million related to the Purigen acquisition, and we increased our safety stock of inventory by about $4.7 million to ensure supply to our customers. We have been and will continue to be proactive and opportunistic in terms of raising additional capital in order to position the company to capitalize on the promise of OGM. Since the start of this year, we've been active on our ATM facility, raising $14.8 million so far in Q1 of 2023. This morning, we filed an amendment to our current S-3, placing a cap on the total amount of capital that can be raised under our existing shelf to $400 million, of which $200 million can be raised under the ATM. This is a reduction to the $350 million under our previous ATM agreement. Tomorrow, we will file a new S-3 with the same capital limits that will replace our current S-3 once declared effective by the SEC. Looking forward, as we begin 2023, we expect Q1 2023 revenues to be in the range of $7 to $7.5 million, in line with the typical seasonal softness that we see in Q1. We expect full year 2023 revenue to be in the range of $35 to $38 million, which at the midpoint would be 31% growth over 2022 revenue. I'm really pleased about the progress we're making across all aspects of the business and very excited about where we're headed. With that, I'm going to turn the call back to Eric to discuss our anticipated business plans before we take your questions. Eric?
Thanks, Chris. Congratulations on the incredible results. I'd like to close out today by diving into the 2023 milestones that will be tied to our growth strategy. Before doing that, I want to remind everyone that we held our first ever strategy day at NASDAQ in New York, where this whole team went through an in-depth review of our strategy, growth drivers, financial objectives, key initiatives related to clinical trials and new product advancements, as well as in-depth discussions with 6 current users of the Saphyr system who are regarded as world leaders in their fields, who gave incredible testimonials about the utility of that platform and its positioning. And so I encourage everyone to check out the recording of the event, which can be accessed on the investor site of our webpage. As we reviewed in depth during Strategy Day, we're focused on driving what we believe is a cytogenetics revolution. Elevate is our growth strategy. Elevate is based on 6 strategic pillars. The first one is to expand commercial traction and validation of optical genome mapping and really all of our solutions, to delight customers with robust products, clear the path for OGM reimbursement in our target markets, continue to advance the product to enable further penetration of our existing markets, as well as expand the market for penetration into new ones, make software a strategic driver of Bionano solutions, and with the acquisition of Purigen Biosystems, we'll extend that to include making sample prep solutions for DNA isolation, another strategic driver, And then finally, the sixth pillar, and one that's really important on a go-forward basis, is that we need to execute these pillars with operations and strategies that will scale with this growing business. And so we have a number of key milestones that are planned in 2023. They cover areas of product developments, our ongoing clinical studies, milestones in reimbursement, milestones around expanding the installed base of optical genome mapping systems, and important regulatory developments with the FDA. I want to run through a few of these, and you'll be able to review them through the recording of this call, which will be archived on our website. But we intend to expand the OGM system installed base to 325 systems by the end of 2023. We intend to add to our menu of LDTs at Bionano Labs with one for whole genome evaluation of structural variations in constitutional genetic disease. We're going to be inspected by the College of American Pathologists at Bionano Laboratories in connection with our application for accreditation by CAP. In the first half of 2023, we'll be launching the high-throughput Saphyr system, which we believe will increase throughput substantially and will be connected to the new Saphyr Compute, which has been developed in collaboration with NVIDIA. We're going to have important pre-submission discussions with the FDA that are leading up to a pre-submission in connection with the high-throughput Saphyr system later on. We plan to submit an important dossier to Medicare for something called a local coverage decision in 2023, and we will advance our clinical studies. There are a number of milestones in connection to these studies, including ongoing enrollment of our prenatal study as well as ongoing enrollment of the heme study, around which we expect to achieve about 50% enrollment. We are continuing to pursue our Category 1 CPT codes for heme and constitutional use of optical genome mapping, and we expect to have pre-commercial versions at a minimum of our OGM kits for isotachophoresis that will run on the ionic purification system in the field by the end of the year. And lastly, we will be launching and having a full commercial release of VIA, which is the newly named software for data analysis based on what we acquired from BioDiscovery. And VIA includes the ability for optical genome mapping analysis, and it will target heme applications in the first half of 2023, and then a whole genome analysis version available in the second half of the year. And so these are incredibly important milestones that we expect to achieve this year, and the whole driver behind them is to provide catalysts that will enable ongoing revenue growth and the development of a very robust P&L. And so as we continue to execute on these core elements of the strategy, we expect to grow revenue for the next few years at a healthy compound annual growth rate ranging from 30 to 50% through 2025. We believe that we're building a business that will eventually scale into this enormous market opportunity that we're pursuing and deliver exceptional financial results. And so in closing, I want to say that we are really excited about what we can achieve this year, and we look forward to updating you soon about the first quarter and throughout the year going forward. With that, Michelle, we are ready to take questions.
Thank you. If you would like to ask a question, please press star 11 on your telephone and wait for your name to be announced. To withdraw your question, please press star 11. And our first question comes from the line of Jeffrey Cohen with Ladenburg. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hi, Eric and Chris. How are you?
Good.
Hi, Jeff. Doing great.
So, I guess first, just a quick one for Chris. As far as the inventory and inventory build from Q4, you did call out a couple things. Is there some relationship there to your new high throughput instrument, or was the build up with flow cells or existing Sapphire instruments?
It was existing Sapphires and flow cells, and basically, when in the height of the supply chain challenges, we wanted to ensure that we wouldn't be constrained on demand. So we started building safety stock, and I guess the key point is we're just about done with that in Q4, a little bit in Q1, and then we'll start bringing that safety stock down as we bring up the new instrument and consumables later in the year and into next year.
Okay, got it. That's helpful. So it's not necessarily going to increase along with your revenues, but it may have peaked for the shorter term.
Correct.
Okay, got it. And Eric, you did call out the 2 LDTs thus far. Would you expect others to be introduced during 2023 as well?
Yes, we're going to continue building that menu. So in 2023, for sure, we're going to release a LDT for constitutional genetic disorders that's looking at the whole genome and revealing structural variations that may be connected to a variety of indications such as intellectual disability, developmental delay, and so forth.
Got it. And then as far as the new instrument introduction in the first half this year, do you expect that will replace Sapphires at high throughput facilities and centers, or would it be adjunct at high throughput centers?
I believe it's going to be incremental adjunct because the Sapphire system operates well and performs just as well as its high throughput version will, but it can be used in a setting like that for the development of new assays and other techniques that a laboratory or a customer may want to work on or evaluate. And so I really do expect that the new system would be adjunctive to what they already have.
Got it. And then lastly, one more if I may. As far as the margins and looking forward into 23, would you expect that they grow from 22 levels? And if so, where are the levers? Is it on the product side or the service and other side?
So we do expect it to trend up from here. We're not providing any more guidance on exactly how much. But the reason is that we've now worked through the inventory of chips that were produced during the time when we were struggling with our yields. And so, we built up a lot of inventory during that time to make sure that we can service our customers. As Eric mentioned, thankfully we didn't miss any deliveries to any of our customers. But we did that by virtue of having this inventory. So we've now worked through that, and we're back to production at kind of the yield levels that we were at prior to early 2020. So that's what's really going to drive it up.
Okay, and one more quick one for Eric. As far as the payer environment, both the payers and Medicare, what's your sense there on their receptiveness more recently to the overwhelming body of data that you're delivering to them, and how they're thinking about the economics in the space now?
I mean, I think that the progress that we're seeing is very positive. And we have a function in the company, market access, led by a real veteran in the industry, and she's in the process of putting these data in front of these payers. And so while you and I follow Bionano's communications and press releases and publications incredibly closely, the payers are still catching up, and so Donna is going to make it an issue for them and put it in front of them. But we have a lot of discussions ongoing already, and payers get it. There's just a process that we have to go through, to satisfy them. And, Donna is developing a multi-pronged strategy, and we'll be able to say more about that in the future as we start delivering against some of these key milestones. But, I think the fundamental answer is that they like what they see, and we have to make sure that all of them see it and then continue to see more and more and more and more.
Got it. Okay, super. Thanks for taking our questions.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. And one moment for our next question. Our next question comes from the line of Sung Ji Nam with Scotiabank. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking the questions. So was wondering about the completion of the postnatal study and the publication there. Kind of what are the next steps? Is this something where you kind of wait for all the other studies to be completed, in terms of, beginning your conversations with the guideline bodies or whatnot, or just kind of curious what the next steps might be?
I think that the principal next step is to finalize the preprint, which has been published, and then submit it for peer-reviewed publication. I think that that's the key next step for that body of data. But there are some 1,047 data sets associated with this study, and they all contain within them multiple publications that we'll be able to dive deeply into and highlight some of the key endpoints that we've been seeking to measure. The preprint goes into a couple of subpopulations, one with autism spectrum disorder, another which was a prospective cohort that was collected, and it already shows almost an increase of 20% in pathogenic findings compared to the standard of care for both of those populations. But it also reveals that there were a substantial number of presumably reportable findings that have a high likelihood of being pathogenic. And so we need to sort that out by looking deeply into the nature of those events. And so I think the way to think about it is that this preprint has been published, and we'll get that out. It's going to cover 1,047 data sets, which is an incredibly impactful number that nobody can run from. We show 100% concordance with the standard of care and substantial increase in performance overall. So it's very powerful, but there are many, many more publications that will dig out of that data set and proliferate. And so you should expect there to be just more and more information coming out highlighting the incredible importance of optical genome mapping. And those publications will support our efforts to convince guideline agencies, medical societies, to embrace optical genome mapping, write things like consensus statements that ultimately result in the medical societies recommending optical genome mapping as first-line testing.
Gotcha. That's super helpful. And then just curious about the HRD detection publication that came out. Obviously very interesting there. Is that something that you might be able to incorporate into your solid tumor studies, or is that just kind of something that you think the customers will continue to potentially, develop on their own?
So Bionano is a player in HRD at two levels. Number one, we have what we believe is the most robustly performing approach to calling HRD and scoring HRD from existing data types like sequencing, next generation sequencing, and other data types, microarrays, And that's commercially available now, and labs are adopting it and utilizing it. In addition, optical genome mapping has now been shown to be as good as sequencing, if not substantially better. There was a paper, and maybe this is the one that you're referring to, that was published from the Curie Institute in Paris, and it showed that optical genome mapping way outperformed whole genome sequencing for identifying patients in the study who were in fact qualified for PARP inhibitors, but if they only used sequencing to pick up those patients, they wouldn't have picked up as many. And so optical genome mapping appears to be more powerful. And so that's a long way of saying, yes, we expect optical genome mapping to feature prominently in HRD scoring, and that will be something that we will measure as part of these studies. Now, I've got to be fair and point out that the vast majority of solid tumor specimens that are collected and analyzed throughout oncology today are in formalin-fixed paraffin-embedded tissue, and that's not something that we have an assay for optical genome mapping on yet. We expect to be able to work on that eventually using isotachophoresis. But what I can tell you is that the results that Curie is getting are so incredibly impactful that their institution is now advocating the collection of and preservation of frozen, fresh tissue in breast cancer, because it seems that optical genome mapping is so powerful that it warrants a change in practice of sample collection and sample utilization. And so maybe that's something that can influence, be an influence on practices here in the United States.
Great. And then lastly from me, on your 2023 guidance, for the 325 OGM system guidance, was wondering if that's including the new high throughput systems. And also, are you seeing maybe some of your potential customers or existing customers kind of waiting or holding off in terms of adopting OGM systems in the, currently or in the first half of the year in anticipation of the launch in the second half of the year?
We don't see that, and the availability of this new high throughput system will be relatively limited in the second half of this year, and that's somewhat by design to protect against any hesitation in the market. We also will have different commercial terms, and we'll continue to make it very attractive to bring Saphyr in and adopt and get up and running with it, whereas the commitment for the high throughput system will be a little bit higher. So we're working on ways in which we can really engineer the demand and make sure that there isn't a pause. Having said that, I'm sure that there will be some sites that will be go ahead and wait on the sidelines. We know that there are sites that are waiting on the sidelines today, but we're not thinking that it's going to pause substantially existing opportunities in the sales pipeline. But we have to see. There is that risk. And with regard to the first question, the 325 is inclusive of both Saphyr systems and the new high throughput system.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sanji.
Thank you. And one moment for our next question. Our next question comes from the line of Jason McCarthy with Maxim Group. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hey guys, thank you for taking my question. This is Michael Okunowicz on the line for Jason. And I want to congratulate you on the fantastic progress, not just over this most recent quarter, but really over 2022 overall.
Thanks, Michael. That's great. Love it. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I actually wanted to ask a follow-up question on the publications that you just released recently from the postnatal study. There were two real key takeaways. Obviously, you had the high technical performance, and that's key, but there was also a 30 to 40% increase in diagnostic yields in some of those data sets. So could you talk a little bit about how both payers and guidelines assign importance to demonstrating full concordance within a simplified and streamlined workflow versus the increases in diagnostic yield?
Well, I think that it's obviously the name of the game. That's what we're aiming for. We believe that we would be seeing these kinds of outcomes, and we went for it, or I should say that Alka Chaubey, our chief medical officer, believed it so strongly that she left PerkinElmer to come here and make these things happen. And, she's been right on target. And when it comes to talking about pontificating, if you will, on how medical societies and payers and so forth will respond, of course, it's speculation. We don't know, but we have history to look at. Karyotyping was once the recommended first-line method of analysis in constitutional genetic testing. And its overall diagnostic yield was pretty poor, low single digits. And microarrays offered the same kind of concordance that we're seeing with optical genome mapping relative to the standard of care, but an incremental improvement. And if you look at the performance of microarrays, it's anywhere between 10 and 20% or so diagnostic yield on average across all labs that are performing it. And so when we are, when microarray studies were conducted and this increase in diagnostic yield was reported, we saw the medical societies and payers come on board enthusiastically and make recommendations for microarrays to be considered as the first-line test. And that's how those guidelines are written on a global basis. And so when we bring the level of performance against the standard of care, so now we're 100% concordant, not to karyotyping, but to the newly increased standard set by microarrays and karyotyping combined. And by the way, in many cases, in constitutional genetic disorders, it was additional modalities were used as well, FISH, Southern blot. And so we compared against the whole kitchen sink that's available today, 100% concordance. And then when you look at this incremental performance, it's really outstanding. So we feel like the medical community would see this as an incredible advancement in the performance alone. But then when you add, as you did, the fact that it's coming from a single assay, which shrinks the time to results, which is incredibly impactful for these families who are waiting to hear the answers, we think it's kind of, very clear the path forward in this case. The work remains, though, to continue the studies, to continue the analysis, to drive the publications, and to get this in front of these societies. We have a little bit of a head start because many of the PIs on this study are involved in these societies, and so they're certainly aware. But it's incredible results, and I think it's just the beginning.
All right. Yes. Thank you so much for that. I also want to touch on NX Clinical 7.0. Now that that's out in the field, have you gotten any feedback from the early adopters on that new software solution?
We have. They're enthusiastic about it, and they love our current systems, which is great because I think our team has worked for years in developing analytical platforms for OGM data, and it's a brand new data type, and everybody was excited to develop methods for sequencing out in the world academically, but we were on our own with OGM, and Mark Oldakowski, the leader of product development, chief operating officer, assembled a team, and they built an incredibly powerful platform that's being utilized. But there are elements of that platform that these KOLs and customers had been asking for around reporting. They want to look at a report that tells them whether a variant was detected or not detected. They want that report to be driven by the medical guidelines. This is a critical step in their workflow. They want to be able to immediately interpret the structural variation findings that they see either through Access or what we call VIA, that's Annex Clinical 7.0, we shortened that name to VIA, which stands for Variant Intelligent Application. So they're able to visualize it either way, Access or VIA, but the interpretation is something that we've now built into NX Clinical for structural variations, and we're delivering these reports. These are incredibly powerful. Why are these reports important? Because, of course, they're customized and validated in customers' hands. Remember, this product is research use only, so customers have to select the panels that they want to have reported out. But once they select that, they're able to put these incredibly actionable reports in the hands of clinicians, and oncologists can interpret them immediately. So it's incredibly powerful, and what they tell us is that they love this workflow and that it really simplifies their life incredibly, because today, even with optical genome mapping and Access, it's an incredible power, they're having to deal with multiple different software platforms. And so this kind of advancement is something that they've been waiting for. And I want to underscore, and it's the reason that making software a strategic driver of business for us is one of our pillars, is that VIA is not only a solution for optical genome mapping, but it integrates these other data types. And when you look at the sequencing landscape out there, and you see all of these companies that are introducing next generation sequencing solutions, we have talked to them and we're enthusiastic about working with them. We all see them bringing value to the end user, but what the end user sees is that they need a solution that integrates this information all together for one-stop reporting, and our VIA provides that. So we're only at the beginning of the power of this software. We believe software is going to be a strategic driver of our solutions and customer adoption going forward. So we're excited to roll out the full commercial release of the hematologic malignancy application in the first half of this year, and really keep that ball rolling on an ongoing basis.
All right. Thank you very much for taking my questions. I'll hop back in the queue.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you. And one moment for our next question. And our next question comes from the line of Francois Brisebois with Oppenheimer. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Dan on for Frank. Congrats on the quarter, and thanks for taking our questions. Firstly, I just want to start with if you could add some color on how the integration of the Purigen Ionic system has been going. Have the development team and commercialization team all been completely onboarded? And in terms of the market, are you starting to see renewed interest from those customers who are on the sidelines? And also related to that, how are you thinking about the additional markets you could expand into?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Appreciate the comments and great questions. So with regard to the acquisition, integration is to a certain degree ongoing, but this one was very straightforward. We had an outstanding product, which we have integrated into our commercial teams in Europe and in the United States. And then our channel partners or distribution partners around the world are being onboarded to sell the Ionic system. And we think that as a standalone business, It has a lot of great potential. It's going to take some time to really figure out how much of the market we can penetrate with it, but we know it's outstanding technology and that the current users love the system. We think we can multiply it, but that team has been fully integrated under the sales leadership that we have in place and marketing leadership that we have in place. From a development perspective, that team is led by Clint Rose, who is one of the co-founders of Purigen Biosystems and really one of the gurus of isotachophoresis. And what I can tell you is that Clint and his team are super fired up to be part of Bionano. And if you want to learn something about isotachophoresis and its applications, I encourage everybody to look at the archived recording of our workshop at the Advances in Genome Biology Technology, or AGBT meeting, which was held February 6th. And Clint gives a brilliant talk, and we're really pleased to have him on board here. And his team, as a standalone sample prep company, was focused on developing solutions for the entire spectrum of samples that might need to be used in genome analysis. And that's great, that's exciting, but it includes a lot of things that are tough to work on. We have really taken them and said, listen, let's focus on human genome analysis, stuff that's highly relevant for clinical translational work. You've done an incredible job in formalin-fixed paraffin embedded tissue, FFPE, so far. Keep doing that. But now let's start to work on the optical genome mapping workflow. Initially, they're focused on blood, bone marrow, frozen tissue, and that really complements what's currently available in the market in manual workflows. So we want to automate that as quickly as possible using isotachophoresis, which will be a complement to what Hamilton has out in the field. But then we're going to expand the menu, as you say, start to go into new markets, looking at prenatal sample prep, all sorts of sample types that are very minute, such as punch biopsies, and sample types that are very common in genetic disease, including buccal or cheek swabs, where the cells of interest are present in a very dilute concentration. And so isotachophoresis looks to be the perfect solution to making those samples compatible with optical genome mapping, and gives us the opportunity to penetrate these new markets within our kind of addressable TAM overall. And with regard to customers sitting on the sidelines, I think really obviously these new markets would represent an opportunity to bring new customers in. But the reality of it is that the degree to which anybody's waiting to adopt optical genome mapping, they're more waiting on us addressing their throughput needs in hematologic malignancies, which we already have supported sample prep solutions for, and will be integrating onto ITP going forward, and reimbursement. So, ITP is key to advance the workflow and then bring in these new sample types to expand the workflow. But a lot of the customers that already have optical genome mapping will add isotachophoresis, and their utilization volumes will grow, as opposed to customers coming in from the sidelines.
Thanks for that. And just finally, a quick one from me. You highlighted some COVID-related challenges at the start of the year. Are you now seeing production yield sort of normalize to pre-pandemic levels, or is it more of a gradual return?
It was a gradual return that unfolded over the course of the year, and the actual production yield, which had basically tanked in the fourth quarter of 2021, we've reached those levels. However, the impact of that reduced yield translated into the need to build more inventory because we just needed to recover more chips, from as a result of the lower yield. And so the production of those chips came at a higher cost, and so we're burning through that inventory. So the yield, the production yield itself has been restored. We got to work hard to keep it there. There's no guarantee that it stays there, but we believe it's stabilized for now. But we need to work through the chips that were built at a higher cost overall. So it's going to take some time now for the margin to recover.
Great. Thanks for taking my questions. Congrats again on the quarter.
You're welcome, Dan.
Thank you. One moment. And our last question comes from the line of Mark Massaro with BTIG. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hey guys, thanks for taking the questions. Congrats on a strong year and a nice analyst day in AGBT last month. I wanted to start off with the guidance. I saw your Q1 revenue guide of $7 to $7.5 million. That's down 10 to 15% sequentially. Just wanted to make sure that it's largely just a function of seasonality. A lot of people may have exhausted budgets at the end of Q4. Do you think that Q1 will mark the low point of the year and that we can have likely an acceleration from the Q1 level?
That's certainly typically what we see, combination of things just getting a slow start with new budgets in the beginning of the year. And like you said, people kind of rushing to spend the remaining capital budgets at the end of the prior year. So, we always see this level of drop from Q4 to Q1. And then, at least for the last 3 years, we've seen growth off of that Q1 number steadily throughout the year. And that's certainly what we expect to see again this year.
Okay, excellent. I noticed in your 10K, I think you broke out the software revenue from the service and other line. And I think you noted that software revenue is expected to even out. Should we expect, flattish software? And then when I think about the buckets, I think you grew instruments 46% in 2022. You grew consumables 16% in 2022. Is it likely that instruments will continue to outpace consumables in 2023? And maybe can you give us a sense for what type of contribution you might get from services? And again, I assume software is flattish, but any additional color there would be helpful.
Yeah. So, software, flattish is probably undercalling it a little bit. We'll see modest growth. The core economic engine of the company is OGM. And so that's where we'll see the bulk of the growth come from. But the software and services business both are projected to be up from last year. Well, with the growth in the installed base, we should expect to continue to see growth in the consumables. And ultimately the consumables will start to exceed the instrument revenue. That's certainly the goal and the expectation. So we'll see that consumable revenue grow as a percentage of total revenue.
I think something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, I was going to say something to keep in mind is that, the instrument revenues can be very lumpy. The deals tend to be pretty big in size, and we had pretty significant instrument purchases coming from certain geographical regions. And, so we're going to see that for a little while where, just a particular type of adoption is going to, kind of skew the numbers a little bit. But Chris is right, which is that, we're seeing the consumables growth on a year-over-year basis. From a unit perspective, the growth of units is significant, and so everything that we're seeing is pointing towards substantial growth on the consumables line. And I want to thank you for asking the question about the $7 to $7.5 million guidance. That is, as Chris said, but I want to underscore it for you and for everybody that that's typical seasonality. I think, we were 5 and change in the first quarter of 2022. So typical seasonality.
All right, perfect. And then I also wanted to ask about the next-gen Sapphire. I think at the Analyst Day, you mentioned a 13x increase in throughput capacity. If I have it right, the Sapphire list price is $150,000. Given the fact that this is higher throughput, can we assume maybe a higher list price? And I don't know if you can provide any specificity to that. And then as it relates to the cost per sample, I know that NGS has been dropping. I think you guys are at around $450 per sample. Can you give us a sense for where you think that might trend on a dollar basis exiting 2023 or 2024?
So, with regard to, consumables pricing, I mean, in over the course of the year, I think that, ASP and what we've seen historically for the last, handful of quarters, 4 quarters, maybe 6 quarters, is that we don't have a lot of pressure on price. The 450 is actually list price if you own a system. If you rent a system, it's a little bit higher. But we don't see a lot of pressure there. We know that as we expand geographically, if we want to get the business, we're probably going to have to lower price. And so a lot of our efforts around, especially on the next gen side, development of consumables, is to drive costs of production down so that we have more flexibility around price. I see maybe some erosion of the 450 overall this year in 2023, but not a substantial amount. And it's healthy to imagine that going down over the subsequent years because of the price elasticity that exists out there. And we have said that we would expect to, that it's kind of one of our goals to be able to, if we had to produce our consumables in such a way that if we ever had to get down to sub $200, we could do it and have good margins. So, but that's going to happen over time, and that's going to be driven by really, really substantial increases in volume. Now, turning to your question about the high throughput Sapphire system, we haven't set pricing for it yet. We certainly think that the value is there. I want to emphasize one thing, and that is that, yes, it's a 13-fold increase in throughput overall compared to Sapphire, but that goes stepwise. So on a per instrument basis, it's right around 4-fold increase in throughput, but we have a scheme developed where we will leverage something called a work cell, which is very common in the industry, and enables us to link together multiple systems. And so that's where we get that second phase of throughput increase that gets us to the 13x or so, maybe even higher. And so, and that work cell will be available in 2024. Now, something that is an important lever that we are looking at with regard to the commercialization of this high throughput system is whether or not it's going to be available in the reagent rental program. And I think that it will probably be a more demanding rental program than we have put out there for the Sapphire. And so I think what might happen on average is that you're going to see more purchases for the high throughput system than you see for the Sapphire system. And so that would have the effect of driving up revenues. The cost of building that high throughput system, will enable us to have, acceptable margins at the 150K level.
Yep, makes sense. Thanks for all that. My last question is, can you expand a little bit on conversations you're having to obtain an LCD for OGM reimbursement? Is that with Palmetto MolDX or Noridian? And can you give us a sense for timing and, perhaps what data you may need to submit?
So those discussions have been ongoing with Palmetto for some time, actually. We talked with them in certainly in early 2021 about laying the groundwork, and something that they've been looking for is to see adoption of optical genome mapping and validation of laboratory developed tests by users in the field, because they don't want to work on something that only the manufacturer cares about. So, I respect that. And what we've seen now is a tremendous increase in the number of laboratory developed tests, and importantly, in their jurisdiction, in Palmetto's jurisdiction. And so they're starting to see submissions for reimbursement in their regions. And so, our strategy is to be a facilitator in the market and, work with Palmetto, the degree to which we're allowed as a manufacturer research use only platform, in connection with users, but also with what's going on at Bionano Laboratories, our own CLIA lab. And we want to work with them and other MACs to establish local coverage decisions, and we're pursuing them all in parallel, I think you can say, in principle. There are some merits to going after Palmetto initially, but I think, our view is that we need to be in conversations with all of them. And Palmetto and MolDX have pretty clear, requirements for information that needs to be submitted around things like clinical utility, clinical validity, analytical validity, things like limit of detection, and other forms of performance that establish that optical genome mapping workflow is robust, it's reliable, and it can be operated, on a lab-to-lab basis. And so we've communicated with them. We have that list, and we're working against it in developing a dossier that we'll be submitting to them sometime this year.
Perfect. That's it for me. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, and I would like to turn the conference back over to Dr. Erik Holmlin for any further remarks.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you to everyone for joining. Thanks to everyone who asked such incredibly insightful and penetrating questions. We look forward to updating you on our progress on the first quarter 2023 call in short order. Thank you very much.
This concludes today's conference call. Thank you for participating. You may now disconnect. Everyone, have a great day.
Thanks.
So the conference is over, but somehow my mic is not turning on, guys. My mic is not on. I'm just going to use the mic from the computer, so please bear with me. I think the battery is dead. Anyway, I'm still gonna make a separate video about this earnings call, probably tomorrow or on Saturday. I'll take my time and record a good video, to let you guys know what's going on, because we have some articles out there already. For example, we have this one from Seeking Alpha that says Bionano Genomics 2023 revenue range comes in below consensus. You guys can see Bionano set its 2023 revenue guidance range at between 35 and 38 million US dollars, below the consensus of about 40 million US dollars. I already spoke about this before the earnings, and after the earnings report came in, and then we have in the quarter, Bionano saw its net loss widen minus 16, approximately 69% to about 38.7 million US dollars. Then they say Bionano ended 2022 with cash equivalent. I think this is completely wrong, guys. You have to be careful with the kind of articles you are reading out there. Look at that, 5.1 million what? Approximately 5.1. I don't understand this. Approximately 79% decline from the end of 2008. I don't know what they are talking about here. Anyway, that's the first one. Then we have a second article from Zacks. Okay, this one is more or less positive. If you go further down, you can see they said they continue to rate Bionano Genomics number 2, which means a buy instead of hold. And then so the shares are expected to outperform the market in the near future. Okay, so that is one from Zach. So tomorrow I'm going to try, tomorrow or on Saturday. I'm not promising tomorrow, okay, but I think Saturday is the best time for me to try to sit down and make a recap of the earnings and share more information with you guys. Tomorrow I'm going to take my time to read more about this, and I'm going to listen to the earnings call once again to figure out what I might have missed. So see you guys in the next one. And of course, I still owe you guys a video about some other stocks that I have been sharing with my patrons. If you guys want to learn more, you can easily reach me on Patreon. It costs about just $5 US. I have 7 positions left. Once it is complete, I'm gonna increase the money to $7 US. So I think that is that for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. I remain your boy Dayo. This is Frunkla. Please smash the like button before you leave. And let me quickly see if there is some question that I would love to answer. I missed it. What was the earnings per share? We have the earnings per share. It came in at 0. Look at that. It's a loss of minus 13 cents instead of minus 9 cents. So it is came out with a quarterly loss of 13 cents per share versus Zach's consensus estimate of a loss of 9 cents. So to answer your question, Jamel, thank you guys, and see you guys in the next one. I remain your boy Dayo.